What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Owlery. My name is Aaron, and today I thought I'd do a video on something that's been coming up quite a bit recently with a lot of my friends, especially those in the Pokemon Go community. They're a little hesitant on playing this game or even starting to try to play this game because they think it's too involved and they think it's too difficult. So I thought I'd do a video guide on how to play Wizards Unite for those of you that play Pokemon Go. I've been playing Pokemon Go since the beginning, still play it all the time, and I feel like I have a fairly in-depth idea of how both games work. So uh, the first thing I'd like to pay attention to in this circumstance are the foundables. So those are those things floating around in space, and those are Pokemon. They act the exact same way. They have the same spawn rate, and by clicking on them, as you can see, you enter a little mini instance, just like you do in Pokemon Go. For here we have the we have the baby hippogriff, very cute, and you can see at the very top of the screen there is a level of difficulty. So this is a low level of difficulty foundable. At the bottom of the screen you can see that there's something called spell energy in the lower left and potions in the lower right. These are resources that you can use, and they will help you to achieve your goals by attaining the foundable. So the potions in this circumstance are essentially like berries that make it easier to return the foundable to the wizarding world, and the spell energy that you need to use to cast your spell is just like a Pokeball. So those are the two resources that you use in this game, just like you do in Pogo. You can see I was successful the first time, just because that was such a low level foundable and that I successfully returned it to the Hogwarts grounds. This game is also very rich in positive reinforcement, so you get a lot of rewards based on the way that you achieved your goal. So just like in Pokemon Go, you get XP based on whether or not you had a good, great, or masterful throw, just like you would for having a nice or great or excellent throw in Pokemon Go. Also, the curveball would come into play as well, which is essentially just the style in which you do your tracing, or the effectiveness and accuracy in which you do your tracing. So both accuracy and speed count when you're doing your tracing. The faster and more accurate you are, the better success rate you'll have for returning your foundable to the wizarding world. And by returning that foundable, you get the fragment. And after you achieve the amount of fragments that are necessary for your sticker, then those go inside your registry. The registry is just like Pokemon storage. It works the same way, and you get rewards for returning them just like you do in Pogo. So in this circumstance, you get scrolls and runestones. Scrolls are just like Stardust, and runestones are just like raid passes. Each registry has its own page, and they each have separate subsections. So you can see here, this is the Care of Magical Creatures page, and you scroll up and you can see the individual foundable objects on each page. So there are subsections for each one of them, and you can scroll through, and just like I said before, this works exactly like Pokemon Storage, just in a different layout. And there are different ranks inside each individual registry page. So you can see at the top there, there's a small colored bar, and you can see that on the left hand side it says rank, and then that one I have a particular rank of 11, and then on the other side there's a treasure chest. So every time you increase in rank, you open the treasure chest, and inside are different rewards. The higher your rank, the better the rewards, but they usually include books, which help you in your profession, which we'll get into later, runestones, or additional scrolls. Sometimes there's gold as well, perhaps a potion or two. Like I said, the rewards are just based on how high your rank is in each individual subsection. So the glowing aspect on top of the foundables represents rarity. So if you see a foundable out in the world that has a glowing color on top of it, that means it's a higher threat level and more difficult to cast. So in the lower right hand corner, I have my potions, and I'm going to utilize one here to cast this to mentor away from Tonks, and this really helps out a lot. Like I said before, These potions are essentially just like berries and use them to make the casting easier, more effective, and more powerful. These potions are called extimulo potions, and so they're like the raspberries and golden raspberries, in that they have different effectiveness based on how severe your threat might be. So you can see I did my cast here, and that was actually a great cast. But just like in Pokemon Go, even if you get an excellent throw in there, or even an excellent curveball throw, there is no guarantee. So on the second one, you can see I just got a good cast, but I was able to successfully send the confoundable, which is guarding the foundable, back to the wizarding world, and therefore defeating my foe and saving Tonks in the process. Something that's a little more unique to Wizards Unite are the ingredients. So you can see the little pulsating icon in the lower right hand corner. It looks like a flower. These are potion ingredients. This is a little more unique, as I said. There isn't really a direct correlation between the ingredients that are found in Wizards Unite and something that I can correlate it to in Pokemon Go. But that being said, the potions are a great way to help you along in this game. So, as I was saying before, some of the potions represent berries, but others represent things like lucky eggs. So one of the great things about Wizards Unite so far is that you don't need to purchase lucky eggs in this game. Essentially, what you have is a brain elixir, and you can brew them. As long as you can find the ingredients in the wizarding world, you can brew anything you want. You can purchase the ingredients as you go if you don't have them, but you don't need to use in-game currency in order to produce the potions. You just need ingredients and time. And there is a way to decrease the amount of time that it takes to brew them. So as you see, I tapped on the ladle there inside of my cauldron, and this thing called Master Notes popped up. And the Master Notes is a section where you can actually use gestures with your ladle to decrease the amount of brewing time by 15%. These individual gestures can be found by clicking on the small eye next to potions in the upper right hand corner there. And there's a full list of gestures that are available to you. I have several videos on my channel on exactly how to accomplish these master potion notes. So once you get them done 2 times, they will be saved into the game, and then you'll no longer need to remember them. They'll be right on top there, as you can see. And there are several recipes in this game, and each potion does something different, so you can feel free to click through each individual one to find out what exactly they do. And you can also click on each individual ingredient so that you can know exactly what you need for your next potion. You can only brew 4 at a time with your standard cauldron. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom. But if you scroll to the left there, scroll to the right, you can rent the golden cauldron, which will give you some additional space to brew, but you have to use in-game currency to do that. So if you're not one of those kind of pay-to-play people, then I would just avoid that section altogether. The next thing I'd like to talk about is something called oddities. Now this is a little bit different than the normal foundables that you see in the wizarding world. This is actually something that you have to battle, and it's one of the sections I enjoy most. So you actually use your finger as a target, so you can see that there's a small circular reticule that you have to focus on in order to be able to defeat your foe. You can also cast Pogo to help protect yourself from the full amount of damage that each oddity will do to you. There are different levels of oddities, just like there's different levels of foundables. And the higher or more extreme the threat, the higher the DPS this oddity is going to do to you. So you just have to make sure that you're managing your spell energy, which is in the lower left-hand corner. And you have to make sure that you're managing your resources, as I said, which are in the lower right-hand corner. Another unique aspect of this game, which doesn't directly correlate to Pokemon Go, are your daily assignments. These are really advantageous to work on because they give you experience points or additional spell energy, or additional scrolls, and these refresh every day. So you can see there are 3 there on the screen, and I collect each one individually, giving me some spell energy and some additional scrolls. Over time, as you collect these scrolls, you can increase your spell power, you can increase your attack power, or your critical attacks, and that's something we'll get into later. But as you focus on these daily assignments, they are definitely worth the rewards. There are also special events in this game. So we are in the middle of a special event right now called the Potter's Calamity. And just like Professor Oak's special research assignments, they work exactly the same way. You get additional XP or family XP, and you get some bonus rewards after you finish each individual subsection of the event. So that's really advantageous if you want to level up fast. You also have some things called achievements. So the achievements in this game work just the same way that badges do in Pogo, but for these, you actually get rewarded for completing them. So you don't just get a badge, you get individual rewards as well. So it's always an advantage to get as many of those done as you possibly can. There's also another subsection called the SOS assignments, or Statute of Secrecy assignments, and it's just another subsection for rewards that you can focus on as you're playing the game. The next thing I'd like to bring up are what are essentially Pokestops in this game. So there are 2 different resource generators, just like Pokestops, and the first are greenhouses. So these are the best way to find ingredients, but if you're lucky, sometimes you can get some spell energy from these bad boys as well. The second, and the ones that you'll probably be visiting the most, are the inns. There are several different colors of inns, as you can see here. All of these surrounding me are blue, and these are the best way to get spell energy. So they're full of food, different kinds of food, and the different kinds of food that you get represent the different kinds of spell energy that you get. So some of the smaller items will give you less spell energy, whereas the larger items will give you more spell energy. They have the same countdown time as Pokestops, 5 minutes, and they represent the best way to get your resources replenished in this game. The inns you can see have smoke on top when they've been utilized, and the greenhouses will have the red flag on top until they're ready to be used again. Moving along, we're gonna step into a fortress here. So the fortress is represented in Pogo by a gym, and the fortresses utilize the system of rune stones, and they're called wizarding challenges. So they step in difficulty in different ways. So each individual runestone has a number on it. You can see up in the left-hand corner, there's a 1. Next to that's a 5. You got some 2s in there. So that represents a level of difficulty. So the level of runestone represents the level of difficulty. Also, the level of chamber that you decide to enter represents the level of difficulty. So you can see in Ruin Chamber 2, I had a 158. I'll go up to Ruin Chamber 5 and use the same runestone, so level 1 runestone, and you can see the difficulty jumps pretty significantly, exponentially in fact, to 445. So you can counterbalance the chamber in which you enter by the runestone which you use. The more the difficulty, or the higher the difficulty, the more XP that you're going to accumulate. So I'm going to go into Ruin Chamber 4 here using a level 1 runestone, and you can see that the difficulty is 283. I wanted to make sure that I didn't make the difficulty too high so that for this guide I could cruise through these foes without having to worry too much about being defeated, so that I could kind of give you an insight into how these work. So there are different kinds of foes throughout this game, and each different foe has a strength and weakness based on the profession that you choose. We'll get into professions a little bit later, but for right now you can understand that there are, you can choose either an Auror, a professor, or a magizoologist, and each individual foe will have a strength and weakness based on which profession you choose. You can mitigate those advantages or disadvantages with potions. So in the lower right hand corner of the screen, you can see that there's a small icon that's represented by a bottle, and that's a potion that you can actually consume during the battle. It kind of works as a pause button as well. So when you click on that, you'll see that there's a list at the bottom there of the potions that I can choose, and you can either increase your spell power, you can heal yourself, or you can give yourself more focus. So you can see that I defeated that foe there, and then I gained focus. So at the bottom, that purple bar increased pretty significantly, and then I can choose buffs and debuffs. So those squares at the bottom of the screen represent, as you can see there, that is a debuff, so that's a hex that I placed upon my next foe. So that hex will act as a passive form of damage per second. You can also heal yourself during these instances, so you can see that I'm actually dragging that square box up to my icon, the owlries, up in the top section of the screen there, and that's actually giving me heals. And then you can see right above that this is actually timed, so you have to make sure that you pay attention to that. And then I'm going to use an invigoration draft. So the invigoration draft will actually add focus, so you'll see at the bottom section of the screen there that my focus will increase, so the purple bar will go up, allowing me to use another buff. So a buff is something that helps you. So I actually dragged that increased defense up to my icon to allow me to have more defense during this particular instance. Those buffs and debuffs are represented underneath the power bars at the top of the screen there. So you can see the common werewolf has the orange square right below his power or stamina bar, and that's the debuff that I put on him. And then my stamina bar on the left hand side, which is green, will have the buff below that. And each individual profession has their various buffs and debuffs, and when you go into teamwork sections, so when you're doing this with multiple people, you have to take into consideration which specific professions have which buffs and debuffs to allow yourself the best chance of winning these instances. The level of difficulty increases dramatically when you have more people. So for instance, with this level instance, if I had 4 people in there, the level of difficulty, rather than being in the high 200s, would probably be right around in the high thousands, so like the 2,000 to 3,000 range. But it's a lot more fun. Obviously, you can speak with one another while you're doing this to make it a lot easier and a lot more of a community environment while playing the game. Much like doing a raid in Pokemon Go, it's very similar. But what's nice about it is that you don't need to have a party in order to do it. If you feel like you want to do this solo, if you're more of a loner player, which is absolutely acceptable and understandable, you can do this by yourself. Not a problem at all. And it's not like in Pogo where you can only go up to like a level 3 or level 4 raid and be able to solo it. You can solo these instances as long as you have the buffs and debuffs on board and you have enough potions. They're really, you can go as far as you want. It's just really based on or limited by the amount of resources that you currently have in your vault. And by completing that instance, so completing that wizarding challenge, I was rewarded with not only XP, but I was also rewarded with a fragment, which allowed me to complete a sticker. So it's essentially like being able to capture another Pokemon and place that into your Poke storage. So in this certain one, it's called the Challenger or the Challenges Registry, and you can see I can place a stamp there. So I completed that book, and that it allows me to increase my XP within that specific registry and get me closer to unlocking that treasure box, which again will increase the amount of rewards that you receive for completing it. This next section of the game has a direct relationship to Pogo, and it's a very simple one. So these are portmanteau, which unlock a port key, and they're just eggs, guys. That's really all they are. You use a key to unlock the portmanteau, and the key is an incubator. So Niantic wants you getting out, guys. They want you to get out and get some exercise to unlock these, and you can see that there's some kilometers there in the bar. I've got 2.5 of 7 kilometers on those, but unlike eggs, you can actually find these in the open world. So they'll be on the ground just like ingredients, and you can simply press on them and they'll be added. As long as you have enough space in your vault, they'll be added and you can unlock them as you move along. Another direct relationship that I'd like to go over here are dark detectors, and those are exactly the same as lure modules. So instead of using a Pokestop, you use an in, and you utilize these to increase the percentage or increase the likelihood that a foundable is going to spawn nearby. So if you're just chilling out, want to hang out at a park without moving around very much, you can utilize the dark detectors to your advantage, and you can see that in has something spinning around on top of it now, which represents the dark detector. You can use up to 3 of them at a time, and each one that you use will increase the likelihood that a foundable will spawn. And they work really well, just like a lure module does. So if you happen to be feeling lazy on a particular day, you can just drop or continue to drop the dark detectors, and you won't have to worry about it. You'll get plenty of spawns. The next section of this game just shows how much of a role-playing game that Wizards Unite actually is, and that's represented by your professions. So like I said before, there's Magizoologist, there's Auror, and there's Professor. Each individual one has its advantages and disadvantages, and they all have different lessons that you can learn. So as a professor, I'm kind of more of a well-balanced player. As a Magizoologist, you're more of a healer and kind of a tank. And as an Auror, you're more of like pure DPS, kind of like a glass cannon. You won't have very many defensive spells, but your power and precision and the percentage of critical strikes that you can lay out to your foes is going to be increased dramatically. This is going to take a section in and of itself, or a video in and of itself, but in the most basic format, the skill tree just represents the different ways that you can increase your power, increase your buffs and debuffs, and increase the percentage or the amount of focus that you can have during the instances or during the foe battles inside the fortresses. You need to collect things along the way to increase this. So you need to collect books, you need to collect scrolls, and there are different kinds of books. So there are the standard red books that you find in the ordinary libraries, and then there are the restricted section books that you can only get from the events. So like the Calamity event that's going on right now. You can change your profession at any time, and that's at no cost at all, but you will not be able to transfer the skills that you've learned. So the lessons that you've learned in a specific profession will not transfer to the profession that you choose. You won't lose them, so they'll be there. Like, for instance, if you switch from professor to Magizoologist and you start to rank up your Magizoologist level, and then you go back to professor, all of your professor learnings, so all of your skills will still be there. And then likewise vice versa if you decide to go back to Magizoologist. Up until now, you don't have to spend any in-game currency to do that, so that's actually really nice. You also have the ability to make friends. So just above your portrait there, you can see there's a little icon, and that's your social list or your friends list. So just like Pogo, the game encourages you to go out in your community, make friends, and enjoy each other's company while you're playing this game. It's a lot more fun to play with more people. That's what I've experienced anyway. You see people looking down at their phones at the park at the same time you are. You just go up to them and say, hey, are you playing Pogo or are you playing Wizards? And I've actually gone back and forth. So if they're playing Pokemon Go, I'll switch to Pogo. If they're playing Wizards Unite, all the better. And I'll join in the fun with them as well. Next up is your Ministry ID section. So this is very customizable, and up until now, Niantic is allowing you to change this as often and as frequently as you want to without any in-game currency. So unlike Pogo, where you have to spend money or in-game currency to change which team you play for, in this one you can do it as frequently as you want to. You can also edit your titles, and those are rewards that you pick up as you go. And you can change from Ravenclaw to Gryffindor to Slytherin to Hufflepuff anytime you want on the fly. So there's no restriction to that, at least so far in the game. I'm a Ravenclaw player, but sometimes I feel like being green just because I think the green looks really cool, so I'll change to Slytherin. Also, you can change your wand at any time. So you can see that there are several different kinds of wood, and there are different cores and the different flexibilities and length. It doesn't change the way that you play at all, so it's purely aesthetic. The game gets pretty in depth with the wand lore, which I really admire and I enjoy. But like for instance, a more flexible wand doesn't make you better at charms. A more rigid wand doesn't make you better at hexes. It's just purely the way it looks, but you can change it anytime if you want to, which I like. It's a nice flexibility to the game. So that's really the crux of it, guys. There isn't a lot to this game. It's really not that intimidating. If you play Pokemon Go, you can play Wizards Unite. You can pick it up really quickly without much trouble. And once you get into the basics and once you understand the fundamentals, the more in-depth and more focused aspects of this game just kind of fall into place. If I missed something, or which I'm sure I did, or I made a mistake, if you could leave that in the comments below, I'd really appreciate it. And if you'd like to take the time and you enjoyed the video, if you could click like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that too. I hope you had a good time listening to the video. I know I had a good time making it. I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for stopping by the Owlery. I'll see you next time, and don't get lost out there, guys.